All right, so today we're going to be talking about factoring, okay? We're going to be doing three different types. We're going to be GCF, difference of two squares, and then trinomials, right? So for GCFs, we're just saying, okay, what do they have in common here? So when I look at this first problem here, 3x squared minus 12x, well, what do they have in common? The 3 and the 12 have a 3 in common, okay? And then they both have at least one x in common, so our GCF here is 3x. So then how do we factor that out? Well, what we do then is we take each term here in this binomial and we divide it by 3x. And since we divide it by 3x, we take that out front and we put a parentheses there, okay? And then we ask ourselves, what is 3x squared divided by 3x? Well, the 3's go away, and you take one x away from the top and bottom, the numerator and denominator, and so you're left with a x, okay? Minus, okay, what is 12x divided by 3x? So 12 divided by 3 is 4, x divided, and then take away both x's, and you're left with 3x minus 4, and there you go, that's your final answer. Okay. All right, same thing over here. Let's look at the same thing. What is our GCF between these two? Okay, they both, 4 and 16, they both have a 4 in common. Now this 16 doesn't have an x this time, so therefore my GCF here, guys, is only 4. So I'm going to go ahead, each term there, divide by 4. And so, since I divide by 4, I bring that out front in the parentheses. And I say to myself, okay, what is 4x to the third divided by 4? Well, the 4's cancel out, and you're just left with x to the third. 16 divided by 4 is 4. And there you go. There's your final answer. Okay? Now, difference of two squares, or dots, is in the form of this. It is a squared minus b squared, which then when you factor it out gives you a plus b times a minus b. Okay? So, how do we know it's a difference of two squares? They're both square roots. Like we can take the actual square root of it. Okay? And so when you look at this first one here, you've got x squared minus 9. Okay? So a is just another variable that represents saying that we can take the square root of it minus some other term that you can take the square root of. So what I like to do is this, is I just say, okay, what's the square root of x squared? X and x, square root of 9, 3 and 3, and then now just write out your form. And so it's going to factor out to be x plus 3 times x minus 3. And usually after we do difference of squares, then we are done. Okay? All right, let's look at 4. So in 4, same thing, minus sign, two perfect squares here that we can take the square roots of. Okay? Now, the one thing that I forgot to mention is that if you can take a GCF out, you want to look for a GCF first, always first. Okay? In this case here, 4 and 81, they don't have anything in common, and 81 doesn't have an x or anything next to it, so therefore there's no GCF. So I'm going to assume because of the minus sign in two terms here, that this is a difference of two squares. So let's take the square root of 4x squared and of 81. So when I take the square root of 4x squared, that's going to give me 2x, and then what's the square root of 81? 9 and 9, and then we're just going to write it out like this. So 2x plus 9 times 2x minus 9. And there we go. You now have your difference of two squares there. 2x plus 9, 2x minus 9 totally factored out. Okay? All right, let's look at number 5. So we've got 3x squared minus 75. So I'm going to look for a GCF first. And I definitely see a GCF. We actually have a GCF here of 3. We actually have a GCF here of 3. All right? And so that means that I'm going to take that 3 divided by both terms here and bring that 3 out front, and now that's going to leave me with now x squared minus 25. Okay? Now guys, in most cases, when you take a GCF out, you can then factor down more, okay? And what we have in this parentheses here again is 2 terms minus sign. So I'm going to assume that's a difference of 2 squares, okay? So when I take the square root of x squared, that's going to be x and x, 25, the square root of it, 5 and 5. And so now when I write out my answer, don't forget about that 3 out front. You're going to get x plus 5 times x minus 5, and there's your final answer. Okay, so take a second to look at that, and I just want to make sure you guys can see the board as I'm going over this stuff, which you can. Okay? Now, guys, star method, okay? Trinomials here. Trinomial star method, right? This is in the form of what we like to say ax squared plus bx plus c. That's how we write out. That is the general form of a trinomial, okay, where a, b, and c are coefficients, or in c's case, it's a constant, okay? So when we do star method, up here is a times c, b, a, and a, okay? So let's go ahead here and let's just say I erase this a times c, b, a, and a, and let's fill it out. So what is a times c? Okay, what is a times c? 1 times 60. Okay, what is b? 17. Okay, and then what is a? The coefficient there is just 1 and 1. Okay, so then how I'm getting these 2 numbers, okay, how I'm getting these 2 numbers right here, guys, is I'm saying, give me 2 numbers that multiply to 60 that add to 17. And in that case, it's going to be 12 and 5. So 2 numbers, 12 times 5 give you 60, 12 plus 5 give you 17, okay? And then here's how you always determine how to write out your factors. Well, what's 12 over 1? What's 5 over 1? Well, 12 over 1 is 12, so you get x plus 12. 5 over 1 is 5, you get x plus 5. Okay? Sorry, the screen went blue again. Okay. All right, let's look at number 7 again. Okay, so number 7 again, trinomial here. And I forgot to mention, guys, always look for GCF as well. If for some reason there's a GCF, to maybe make this a little bit easier to factor as well. Okay? So on this one here, again, trinomial. So let's go ahead and do our star method here. Remember, a times c, so 1 times 6 is 6. B, negative 5 here. A, 1 and 1. And so now what I'm doing is I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give me 6 that add to equal negative 5. Okay? And so that is going to be negative 3 and negative 2. So now that we filled out the star here, let's go ahead and let's write out our factors. Just look at the fractions here. What is negative 3 over 1? Negative 3, right? What is negative 2 over 1? Negative 2, x minus 2, and done. Factored right there. Okay? All right, let's look at this last one right here. X squared plus 11x minus 60. Again, that's a trinomial. So we're going to go ahead, star method. So a times c, negative 60, b, 11, a, 1, and 1. And so I need 2 numbers that multiply to give me 60 that add to equal 11. Okay, that add equal 11. All right. And so that is going to be this. That is going to be 15 and a negative 4. 15 times a negative 4 gives you a negative 60. 15 minus 4 gives you 11. Okay? So now that we've got our star figured out here, just look at the fractions. So what is 15 over 1? 15, so you get x plus 15. Okay? What is negative 4 over 1? X minus 4. And there you go. That is our factored out there. Okay, that is ours factored out. All right, and so that is star method with a leading coefficient of 1. Now we're going to look at it where our leading coefficient isn't always 1. Okay. All right. So when it's not 1, we just have one more step, okay? Depending if we have a GCF or not. And we need to check that first to see if we have a GCF or not. All right, so when we look at this first problem here, I look to see if I have a GCF. I definitely don't because 2, 7, negative 4 don't all have a number in common there, okay? And then they don't all have x's either. So we're going to automatically go ahead here and we're going to start star method. Again, remember, this is A, B, C. A times C here, 2 times a negative 4 is a negative 8. B is a negative 7. A is 2 and 2. Okay? So I need two numbers that multiply to give me a negative 8 that add equal negative 7. And that is going to be negative 8 and 1. Okay? So now same process. Let's go ahead and just look at your fractions here. Well, you've got negative 8 over 2, which is going to be x minus 4. But now for the first time, we actually have a fraction here. And so when we write that out, we can't simplify. We write it out as just 1 over 2. Okay, x plus 1/2. But here's the deal. If you were to multiply these two together, you would not get this original trinomial. So what you have to do is whenever you have a fraction, you have to kick the denominator in front. And so your final answer is going to look like this. It's going to be x minus 4 times now 2x plus 1. And there you go. Okay, there you go. All right, let's look at number 10. Okay, let's look at number 10. So number 10, again, look for a GCF here. We've got a trinomial again, but I do not have a GCF again. The 3, the 1, and the negative 10 do not all have something in common. Well, yes, they have a 1, but if it's a GCF for 1, you're not going to do that. You're not going to take it out. It has to be something different from 1. Okay, they don't all have x either, so I'm going to automatically go ahead and start my star method. Again, A times C goes here. 3 times the negative 10, negative 30. B, 1, A, 3, and 3. So two numbers that multiply to give me a negative 30 that adds to equal 1, okay, is going to be 6 and negative 5. Okay, 6 and negative 5. So now that you've got your star filled out, go ahead and look at your fractions here. 6 over 2, well, that's x plus 2 then, because 6 over 3, not 6 over 2. 6 divided by 3 is a positive 2, okay? And when I look at this one, though, I got another fraction. I got x minus 5/3. Got x minus 5/3. And so since that can't simplify, my last step then is just to kick the denominator in front of the x. And so your final answer is going to be x plus 2 times 3x. Excuse me. 3x minus 5. And that's your final answer. All right, guys, last one here. This is kind of putting all these notes together right here, okay? If you can do a problem like this, then come quiz on Friday. Won't be too difficult, okay? So when I look at this, I actually say, okay, yeah, now I finally have a GCF. I have a GCF of 2. Okay, I have a GCF of 2. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out here, I'm going to divide everything by 2. and bring it out front. So I've got 2 times now, looks like 2x squared, negative 30 divided by 2, that's a negative 15. And then 36 divided by 2, that's a positive 18. Okay? So now inside the parentheses, I've got a trinomial here. Okay? We're going to go ahead and we're going to do star method. Okay, just look at what's inside here. Ignore the 2. We'll come back to the 2. Okay, we'll come back to the 2 here. So 2a times c, a, 2, c, 18, 2 times 18, 36. Okay, b, negative 15, and then a is 2 and 2. So I need 2 numbers here that multiply to give me 36 that add to equal negative 15. And what those 2 are going to be are a negative 12 and a negative 3. Negative 12 times negative 3 gives you a positive 36. Negative 12 minus 3 gives you a negative 15. So now let's go ahead and let's simplify. So negative 12 over 2 is going to give you x minus 6. Negative 3 over 2, you just leave it as x minus 3 halves. Again, we don't want fractions. We don't want fractions, and so what we have to do then is we take the denominator and we kick it in front. So then I have x minus 6 and 2x minus 3, okay? And the last thing is don't forget about that 2, bring that 2 all the way down here. And there you go, that's your final answer right there. Okay? So again, recall, we need to know how to do this stuff because, yes, this may not be that advanced right now, but as we move into trigonometry and topics with pre-calculus, where we will need to know how to do this basic stuff, it will get more advanced. So if you know how to do the basics, it just makes the more advanced stuff easier for you. Okay? So that's day 4 lesson right there. Yeah, I'll see you guys in class tomorrow.